Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. My name is Bo Jensen and today we're going to look at how can we do manual routes on the Central Station tree. So the idea is that I got this layout here, I got a main station over here, I got a branch station here, and then I got a yard. Now there's a lot of turnouts on this little layout even though it's not that big. But how do I actually make it easy on my Central Station tree to actually just be able to select a route? So I would like to be able to, in the case of, let's say there's a train over here, you see there's a freight train here, I want to drive it into the train station. I would like to, with one button click, say, okay, it goes to track 1, it goes to track 2, or it goes to track 3. And then whatever signals I would have on the layout or the turnouts, they would actually be set automatically. In order to do that, you basically just need to create some very simple events in the Central Station tree, and then you can actually drag them to your track diagram, and then you can just press them when they are on the track diagram. So that's actually not too difficult. The difficult part is that when you want to name things, then the name becomes too long and so on, and it easily gets cluttered on the screen. So there needs to be putting some thoughts into how do I actually get an overview of my screen as well. As background for this episode, don't forget there's also an episode that talks about how to draw track diagrams. There's also an episode about basic events, although for the purpose of what you need today, I think it's enough to look what's in the video. The basic events video is actually a little more advanced than I did remember, because it also talks about the S88 and so on. So I hope you enjoy the video. So in order to illustrate the manual routes, I'm going to use this layout. So this is a small layout where I here at the bottom have a main station, and up here in the upper left hand corner I got a branch station and a yard. So I'm gonna make routes that enable you to have trains going in and out of the main station and going to the branch station and going to the yard. If we look at how it looks on the Central Station tree, so here we have it. I've modeled it with a control desk. I put some text on, and then the idea is we need to decorate it with routes. So you see here at the bottom, I've put text on. So this is main track 1, main track 2, main track 3, and so on. So I added text as well. If we look at my layout, well, it's a right-hand drive. So it means here on the main going around, it's a loop. I will be driving on the right hand side of the track. And why is that important? Well, if we look at what can I do on each of the track in the main station, if we look at the main train track 3 down here, well, you can enter from over here and drive into the track. But if you noticed, I cannot get out, so I can get on the right hand side the way I have constructed my layout. On track 2, I can go both ways, and on track 1, I can go both ways. So track 2, it's pretty obvious because I can go in and out to both ones on the main track. So how come I can go both ways here on main track 1? Well, that's because I imagine on main track 1, I can also go out, and not necessarily to the main here, but to the branch. By the way, you can also here from main track 3 go out and into the branch. You could also have chosen that you could go from the branch into main track 3, but I did not choose that. And since this is a control desk, and when you draw it on the Central Station tree, you always have to cheat a little. So if you look at this area here, it actually looks like there is a stretch between the turnouts. If you go over and look at the layout, there actually is not. Those two turnouts are just close together. In the same fashion here, you got after the turnout goes off the main and into the branch, there's actually a small stretch here that's also painted on here, but it's basically the turnouts just flushed together. In the same fashion, here between the yard and the branch here, it looks like there's a lot of track. In reality, there's not. It's just the double slip here and the turnout that are close together. So those are compromises you always have to do when you draw it on the Central Station tree. Now, if we look at this one here, I've added signals in between the branch and the yard. And that's actually why I had to draw it a little extended here, so there could be room for the signals to put it on the track diagram in the Central Station tree. In reality, on the layout, you can easily fit them in there between, even though there isn't much space. You could ask, so why don't I have any signals here on the branch line? How come? Well, if you look at it over here on the branch line, there's only a very little distance between the turnout up here, that is the going into the branch station and the yard, and the turnout unfortunately covered by the text here. So this little stretch here, well, a train doesn't really fit. It's too short, so I chose not to have signals there. In the same fashion, if we look at it between the stretch between the two turnouts, which is not really there, you see here on the Central Station tree diagram, I haven't made any signals. So in this case, since there's no signals up here on the short branch, because it's too short and doesn't make sense, and there's no signals down here, how do I protect trains from entering into my main station down here, right? Because in reality, it would be nice to have a signal right here to actually protect the main station. Well, that means I have to rely on the other signals I have here. So if the train is coming in from the main here from the east, well, then it's this signal here that protects. And actually, in reality, since my layout is so small, then it's actually the exit signals out from the branch station that will also protect the entry in here, because there are no other signals on the way. So again, these are compromises you have to do when you have a small layout. Now let's look at how we put the routes on the Central Station tree track diagram. You can basically just drag and drop them on there. So in this case, you see I have some routes put on main track 3. However, you see the naming is a little funny. It says down here M3EW. So depending on your zoom level and so on, you can have between 3 and 5 characters here shown. So you cannot just put a long explanation in here, then it will fill too much on the track diagram. So I had to be inventive and creative and make some abbreviations. Now these are my abbreviations. You could choose to do it differently. But my advice is make some abbreviations so you can figure out what is what. So I use the abbreviation M3 for the main station track 3. So that's why you see all the routes that are on this track actually starts with the M3. Then I use E for entry. I use X for exit. I use W to denote where it's coming from. So over here to the left, we have the west. And remember, when trains are coming into track 3 from the west, they come over on this track because I'm using right-hand driving. In the same fashion, I call the right-hand side the east on my layout. And over here, I also have only one of the tracks that you can use for exiting from main station 3 or main station track 3. In the same fashion, I use the abbreviation B for branch when I want to go to the branch. Okay, so what does that mean? Oh, yeah, by the way, on the branch, don't forget here I can go both ways, while on the others it's a main track, so it's a 2-track line where you can only go one way on each track. So these are the abbreviations I'm using. So let's try and look at it. The first one I want to look at is the main track 3 entry from the west. So where do we have that one? Well, it's actually the route I put down here. And when you activate this route, I want to see the train coming in over here from the west and then actually going into my main track 3. So here I have my Central Station 3, and as you can see, I got my routes here on my track diagram. Now let's look at the first route we got here. So the main station track 3, entry from the west, and we would like it to actually set a route for a train coming from out here and going into the track 3. So let's look at how that looks. If we go to the events, this is where I have my routes. So I got a route here, M3EW, okay? If we look at this route, so what does it actually do? Well, the first thing it does is set signal red. So what is this signal? Well, that's actually, so down here we got track 3, and over here we got an exit signal. So I'm allowing the train to come into track 3, so I want to make sure that there's not green going out. So I remember to set that one to red. It might already have been red on forehand. And then I set the 2 turnouts, so here T14, so T14, so it leads down towards the track 3, and the T13 here, so the turnout 13 here, such that it would actually go into the main station. So that means if I go ahead here and change these, now when I execute this route, I can just hit, well, let me try and make it a little more interesting. So this one, now I turned green, and this one I will turn red. So whenever I execute this route, you'll see it will change the turnouts and then set the signals correctly. By the way I do it is I always try and do it the safe way. I make sure that any other signal that would disturb the route is set first. Then I set the turnouts, and then I set the signal for entry. In truth, it doesn't really matter that much. It just feels nice to me to do it like that. The other thing we can see here is, let me just make this a little smaller, like this. Oh, close it, that's what I want to do. Now if we move this a little up, you can see here, let me turn this back to red and let me change it. I can also click on the route here. So before I showed it from within the events, so I can click it on the route here. And then just as the final thing, remember how it is you create routes. So you go into the event, you hit edit event, and let me just make a new one here. So here I can just add a new route. I can give it appropriate naming. So this was main 3 entry from the west, and I'll call it number 2. Okay. Then you make sure that you can see everything you want to do. So I'm just going to drag this one a little down. So what was it? The first thing I wanted to do, I wanted to set this signal over here to red, so I can just grab it and then drag it up there. The next thing I want to do is I want to set the turnouts down here. So what I would advise you to do is set the turnouts like you want them first. You see now they're set wrong. So I set them like I want, because then I can just long press and drag. And by the way, see, sometimes then it actually turns it anyways. So now you see the T14 I actually got wrong. Then remember you can long press on this one. Oh, you can press on this one, sorry. And then you can change the position in here instead. And then as the final thing, you want to make sure to set that one to green. And now you see already here when I dragged up, another one cheated me. So the signal here I wanted for red is actually green. So this one again, you can go in and set it. So always remember to double check when you drag and drop. Sometimes it cheats you and changes the things. So now you can see I got another one here that is actually exactly the same. And I can go out of edit mode, and now I can play it to see if it works. Again, let me set this one here to red because that's a little more interesting. And then you can see it works exactly as I would expect it. By the way, notice even though I make it a second route, if a route actually is true on the layout, it will actually light up a screen. So you can see it lights up a screen saying you can enter main track 3 from the west now. Everything is ready. Excellent. All right, now let's look at exiting track 3. So the first one I'm going to look at is the one down here, which is main 3, exit to the east. So in this case, I want to go from track 3 and out on the eastern side of my main line. So over here, and again, remember it's right-hand drive, so I need to go over here, which means I need to remember to set this signal going green, and I need to set these 2 turnouts here as well. The next route there is the going from the main track 3 and exiting into the branch line. So in this case, I want to set the route going all the way over here to the branch, and notice I stop here before I go into the branch station. So this is kind of the limit of this route here. Now let's go to the Central Station 3 to look at this one. So here at the Central Station 3, let's go in and look at the route from track 3 and going to the branch line. So we go into the events and we find the M3XB. Where do we have that one? We actually have it here. All right. So it's a little more advanced than the other one. I'm just gonna move some windows around. Yeah, when you're making these routes, remember you have to move things around a lot in order to be able to fit it all on the screen. So what does this route actually do? Well, this route here, remember I want to go here from track 3 through these turnouts and up here. So the first thing I'm doing here is making sure if there's any signals that could interfere to turn them to red. Which signal could interfere? Well, if we go over here and look, there's an entry signal here coming from the main into the station. And we actually want to reserve this stretch all the way till out here. So I want to make sure that this signal out here from the main line is red. Okay? Then I just need to set all the turnouts on the route. And we're coming down here, so I need to set T4 correctly. I need to set T3 correctly, the T202 correctly, and then, of course, the T2 here, such that I go into the main line as well. So if we execute this one here, let me see if I can make it such that we can also see the signal. Okay. Whoops. It jumped back. Yeah, not always easy to make everything fit on the... Okay, I will move the layout out here instead. Okay. And then we can see when we hit play here, you see T4 is set correctly, T3 is set correctly, T202 is set correctly. It remember to give that red, and when everything is good, it gets a green signal, and we can see the route also turns green because now this route is set. Excellent. Now if we look at track 2 on the main station, there are a lot more options. So I can enter track 2 from the west. I can also exit towards the west. And notice that's 2 different tracks. Remember, I have right-hand drive, so it depends on which track on the main line. I can enter from the east to the main track 2, and I can exit to the east from track 2 as well. And again, notice you have to choose the white track on the main line when going in and out. In the same fashion, you can also enter from the branch line into track 2, and you can exit from track 2 to the branch line as well. So we basically have all options here on the track 2, while on the track 3 we only had some of the options. So now how do I figure out how to, or which route actually to press? Because yeah, there's the abbreviations, but it can be a little hard to figure it out. So that's why I've grouped all the routes. So if you look at it, all the routes that has to do with entry and exit towards the west, we have over here. Then we have all the routes to and from the east. And then we got all routes to and from the branch line here. In this fashion, it's easy to have an overview, and it's also easy to see what is missing. So what is missing here? Well, remember track 3, I decided that I only want to be able to come in from the west. So you see there's a couple of slots where there's no routes. So I cannot exit to the west. Why cannot I do that? Because if you look at the way my tracks are, if I try and exit to the west, I will go out on this track out here on the main line, which is wrong. I should actually go over here. So on my layout, I actually cannot do that. So that's why there's no route here. In the same fashion here, if we are looking at the entry from the east, I have actually disallowed that one, although you could say it can come in from the east. But to me, this track here is allocated for trains only going from left to right or from west to east, because if you come in on the entry there, you cannot go out again. Which is not entirely true, because you could actually go out through the branch line if you wanted to. So in the same fashion, I don't have a entry from the branch line here, because I don't want to be able to go that way on the platform. So notice, well, this one I put a question mark on. I could have done it on the same one here. You could have made these two such that you could come from the east and from the branch line into track 3, but then again, the only way to go out would be to go out to the branch line. So you could have done that for trains that come in and turn around on the platform. I have chosen not to do that. You could choose that to do that on the same layout. In the same fashion, just to highlight it, notice that I always put, if I have here for the east, in the first column, I put all the entry routes and then all the exit routes. So in that way, you can easily identify what is missing. So that means that when I add track 1, you can see there's also some missing here. I cannot enter from the west. Why can't I do that? Because the western line over here, I will actually go away from the train station here. It's actually the other track that's using for approaching the train station. And in the same fashion over here, there's no way to actually exit to the west due to the way my layout is. And by the way, this is very prototypical that you don't always have all options in real life. Now let's look at the routes in and out of the branch station. So I'm only making my routes actually till out here where it divides. Remember, my routes coming from the main station ends here. So in this fashion, I've arranged my routes in the same way. I'm using the same abbreviations. So you see B1E means this is branch 1. So this is platform 1 or track 1 where I can enter. And then there's a B1X where I can exit from it. So in this fashion, notice I don't have anything with east or west because it's a branch, so I can only enter from one place. I've done the same thing for the track 2. I have also made a set of yard routes. So what I got over here on the yards is basically going out to the same limit. So a yard 1 entry means that it comes out here from the branch line, and it goes into the yard, and then it goes to the yard track 1, or going the other way as well. And then I have a yard shuffle where I can set such that I can go from the shuffle and actually go into each of the tracks. So here we got the yard shuffle 1. So that means if I click that one, then I can move from the shuffle into the yard track 1, or from the yard track 1 into the shuffle, and the other one does the other thing. So here you can actually see the complete overview of all the routes I've made. So let's try them out on the Central Station tree. So here we have the Central Station again. And by the way, do notice one thing. I've added 2 extra events here. One that basically all stop. So when I click on this one, all signals basically are set to red. And then I got a reset. What it does is it resets all the turnouts and sets all the signals to red. So it calls the all stop. So if I click this one, you will see that it changes all the turnouts, and it changes at first to one side and then to the other side, so they're kind of in a default position. So those 2 are not really necessary. So if we look here on my layout, what do we see? The first thing we notice is that there are no signals on the layout. I have lots of signals on my Central Station tree track diagram, but quite honestly, I don't have enough signals to put them on the layout. However, they are not really needed to be there. So consider the diagram an illustration, and if you wanted to, you can also add the signals on your layout. What else do we see? Well, we see that we got a freight train at the main track 2 at the train station. And this is the class 194, so the green one with the coal freight cars or hopper cars you see here. Now it's on track 2. Let's say I want to exit to the west from track 2. So what I do is I do click on my M2XW, and remember from the pattern over here I got the western routes, so I know I have to click on this one, and now I can basically drive my freight train out of the station. Of course, the thing I have to remember myself here is to set the signal to red again. It will not change back, so I will change that to red now when it's exited. Now it's at the entrance to the train station again, and in order to enter, I need to remember to choose the route such that it can enter. So let me enter track 2 again. So that's the main station 2 entry from the east. So I click on this one, and you see the route is set, and we got the signal set as well. So let's just drive it into the train station again. All right, so now I actually want to put it on the yard. So I want it on yard track 1. So in this case, I need to do 2 things. I need to set exit towards the branch line, and then from the branch line into the yard track 1. So first, I need to do the exit towards the branch line, which is this one, M2XB. Okay, so it's set. You see we get a green signal. And by the way, the signal before when I entered, I forgot to set that to red, but nicely the route did that for me. And now we need to make sure that we got something so we can enter on yard track 1 again. And you see the signal here to enter the yard now turns green, or since this is a yard signal, it actually has a double white. All right, so that means I can basically drive my freight train in there. So let's do that. And remember, everything is manual control now. All right. And again, don't forget to set signals to red after you passed them. Okay, and now I got over here on the branch station, I got a lint that I would like to get to the main station. So I could choose the route on the branch line first, but honestly I don't want to give it a green till I'm sure I'm entering the correct track on the main line. So I'll go to the main line and say I want it on track 1. So I will enter from the branch line. So I set that route. Okay, so now we're ready to go into the main station. And now I can exit my branch line. Most excellent. And now I can basically drive my lint out. All right. And we got it at the branch station. Okay. And yeah, all the beeping is my wife that's excited because she's in Turkey. I remember to set the green light to red. I could now take the other train I got, so the regional or the intercity train I got on the branch station. Let's put that over on track 2. So I first choose my track 2 entrance from the branch line. And then I choose the exit here. Okay. And notice how some of the other signals change as well when they need to. By the way, here's a green that I had forgotten to turn off before. Oh, it's because I guess I hit the exit here for the branch. I should actually hit the entrance. And you notice here, when I change the signal, you can see which of the routes here are actually green and are enabled. Okay, so now I just need to find my intercity locomotive. I believe it's this one here. So let's see. Yes, it is. Oops, I accelerated quite fast there. And it's at the station. Remember to set the signal to red. In the same fashion, I could say that I want to exit to the west here, and then I could have my train continuing. All right. And I remember to set the signal to red again. That's actually why I have the all stop, because then I can just hit that one and hit and then it's all good. Now here's another one. You see there's a train over here to the west. That's actually a freight train. I wanted to drive through the station and go out on the main line again. So in order to do that, I need to make sure that I've set all the routes through the station. So first I want to make sure it can exit. So I hit the exit over here, and oh, I'm almost hitting the wrong one. It's not to the branch line I wanted. I actually want it to the east. Okay, so that green is set, and then I want it to be able to enter from the west, and we have that here. And now I just need to find my locomotive. I have it here, and I can basically drive that one through the train station. Most excellent. Now maybe a comment here. I could have done such that there was one route that actually made the through which is pretty easy. I think the only challenge is to figure out where to put this route on here, because there's enough here on the main station. But maybe one could put on one over here just before the entrance. Maybe there could be two here for going straight through the main station. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, there was something interesting that happened before that I had forgotten about. So I did the exit first, we get a green signal, and then I did the entrance. And then remember what I put in, I wanted to make sure that that one got blocked, so now it turned green. So I should actually first turn the entrance and then the exit, and then I get the all the correct signals. I could also choose that the entry from the west does not set this one to red, because there can actually be cases where it's handy. Or as a third thing, I could make or I could make a through route that actually sets everything correctly and does it. So to me, this is really nice, because it gets an easy way to actually set all the turnouts when you're playing with your layout. Now let me give you a couple of tips and tricks for adding the text and the route actually to the track diagram. So let me just go in and edit my trackboard page. So I'm going to delete the main track 1. And then I'm going to, yes, I want to delete this from my control desk. And I'm deleting the M1EE, so the entrance from the east. Okay. Now in order to add the text, you go to the add up here. And then you go in and then you find the text. You select the text. When it's light blue like this, you can actually drag it in to where you want it. Okay, now I actually did drag it, but to me this is a bug in the Central Station 3 because you cannot see anything. Okay, so I can actually click where I dropped it, and you see now it's actually there. It's invisible, so be very careful with that. When you drag it in, it's actually invisible. I can click on it, then I can long press, and then the text comes up, and then you can write the text, main track. This was main track 1. And then we got it there. But see, now it looks different. It doesn't look entirely nice. So then I can take it like this, and now you see it's text. So I didn't actually have to place it there. I just need to remember where I placed it because it's invisible. I can put it back here, and you see when I snap it to the track, it actually looks correctly and really nice. All right. Now I can do the same thing with the routes. So let me just, unfortunately this window I can't make go away. So, but I can go here, I can choose my routes. I'll move this a little up here. Which route was it I wanted? It was the M1EE, so that's this route here. Again, I can drag this one in. I want it here. And you see, as soon as I drag it in, fortunately this doesn't become visible invisible as the text. You can actually see it, but you see it doesn't look like the other ones. It's because it's still not attached to the track. So I can grab this one here, and then I can attach it to the track. Actually, what you have to look at, you see there's a little hook to the left-hand side. That's actually the one you want to grab, snap to the track. So whenever that one snaps to the track, you see it actually looks correctly, and this is actually how you want it to look. So now I got everything nice looking again. So be careful when you drag text in, it's invisible, and both for the text and the route, you have to snap it to the track, and then it will actually look nice. All right, that was actually not too difficult. What we basically just had to do is make some simple events. They are actually routes, drag them onto the track diagram, and that's basically it. Maybe a comment I should pose here is, I chose to do it on the control desk on the Central Station 3. Remember, there's basically two ways of making track diagrams. One is the control desk, and the other one is the panel. The panel is a little more free-flowing, and you can actually make it look nicer. The control desk is a little more restricted, and you can see that as well. However, when you're doing the routes, when you have to add the text as well, and the way putting it up in a nice pattern so it's easy to figure out. I got the west routes here, I got the east routes here, and the branch lines here. Then it's actually a lot easier on the control desk. You could actually do the same on the panel as well. To me though, it's a little harder getting something that's as visually nice and intuitive as with the control desk. So I must admit, this is the first time I've actually preferred the control desk over the panel, because normally I prefer the panel. Now, this isn't an idea I just came up with entirely by myself. It's actually one I found in a Märklin magazine. So this is the Märklin Magazine number 2 from 2021, where they talk about how to make routes. I adapted it though to my layout and adapted it to the way I like to make abbreviations and so on, and set it up. But the basic ideas of dragging and dropping on the control panel actually came from there. Now you can extend this in 2 ways in my mind. One was, you noticed that I had to remember to set a signal to red after the train passed. Of course, you could use the S88 and you could do train detection, such that you can see when the train either passes the signal or it has completely passed the signal. Then you could actually in that way get the central station to turn it into red as well. You could also mix this with automation. So if you have a fully automated layout, then you could actually turn these events into requests to the dispatcher, where we've seen the dispatcher in some of my previous episodes. And then you could actually that way mix manual and automated mode. I might do a video on either of these 2 topics in the future. I really hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. So by hitting the like button, remember the little notification bell, and do subscribe as well. That will make it easier for you to see videos from this channel in the future. Enjoy!